días, pues continuamos con el siguiente panel dedicado a Smart Destination.
So we continue. We're in the next panel of Smart Destinations, and we have a group of experts that are going to shed light on this topic. We've got Enrique Lancis, who is the Director of Technologies and Development of Business with a PhD on Business Management, MBA by the Instituto Business Schools. He started his professional track record at Deloitte, working for Quicksilver Brown and others. Since 2013, Enrique is the manager of business technology and development at Fitur. He leads projects such as the management of official portals of Tourism Spain, Spain Info, España es Cultura, and Estudiar en España. He leads also the project of intelligent touristic destinations to transform destinations focusing on technology, innovation, accessibility, and sustainability. And he coordinates the subcommittee 5 of the touristic destinations for AENOR. We also have Maíz Escobar, who is Civil Center of Social Services of the Town Hall of Segovia, Director of Innovation at Fondetex, Coordinator of Technical Bureau of a Spanish Network of Smart Cities, co-founder of OEA, the main accelerator of social companies of technological basis. And we also have José Luis Borao, who is from the house. He's an architect of ONCE Foundation, Director of Consulting from Fondos de Accesibilidad. Is he the head of architecture, urbanism, and transport and projects of the town hall? And to my right, we have got Dulce Maria Torres, PhD of technical architecture by Las Palmas University. She's worked on accessibility since 1991, when she started to work with the first plan to eliminate physical barriers at Tenerife Island, and since 1995, she's responsible of a Simpromis responsibility area. She's got a long track record, and she's been awarded with the CEMIR 2014 award for universal accessibility of the Vodafone Foundation. So the idea after presenting these panelists is to debate and to provide a meeting point far from what we expect to just telling your project. So let's try and get a topic so we can get many conclusions. The first question, to break the ice, is for José Luis. How can accessibility foster the intelligence of a destination? Well, thank you, Yolanda, for this presentation. First of all, I think that the intelligence of a destination must be measured beyond technology matters or science fiction matters. A destination which is supposed to be smart is not smart if it doesn't take into account the needs of a high percentage of people which have different needs when enjoying leisure and tourism. When we talk about a smart destination, it must meet the basic prerequisite of tourism. That is, provide quality tourism and the conditions for people to be able to enjoy in the best conditions of comfort, equality, and safety. But we must never mistake that for I will give this example. When we talk about smart cities and smart destinations, we must not think about everything being filled up with devices and probes and sensors. It's something that goes beyond that. Accessibility has to be present in any environment, in any product or service. And of course, the tourist destination, of course. And yesterday it was said very often in many panels, accessibility must be a market niche, especially in tourism. That is an area which is crystal clear. We understand that accessibility must be that action framework, that chessboard or in which I cannot just have a lot of Wi-Fi so that access points are free for everybody if I cannot access those places or that chessboard, if I don't have that technological development for all users with or without disability may use those wireless points. So in that sense, from a union and with the ONCE Foundation, we have been very hard working on the Smart Fit City, or what we can use, the Smart Human City, Smart Human Destination, which embraces all these matters. So accessibility is a basic pillar when we consider smart tourist destinations, and making use of our experience from the Ilunion group, and more especially when talking about this, the Ilunion accessibility surveys and projects, we have been able to work with many entities to define tourist destinations that must have something more in order to be smart, but they must be accessible. For example, work done since long with the Town Hall of Avila, together with ONCE Foundation and Ilunion to also, I've loved hearing the previous panel, David Baines, with whom we've had the chance to talk and exchange opinions for long on accessibility in Qatar. And we are also developing a project for a new smart city there in Qatar. So we are realizing that we coincide in many ideas that David was presenting in his intervention. So accessibility has to be present as a basic rule. It's the board or the field of the game. And let's think of also that has been said yesterday, accessibility is a good design. A good design will always be accessible. Okay? Okay, thank you. Now the question is for Enrique. If we retake the assessment of tourist destinations, how is accessibility included? How do destination managers include accessibility? Well, thank you very much. So what we have been working on since 2012 is the smart tourist destination, and we're facing key pillars such as accessibility, but we're facing that each destination is unique. Each destination includes accessibility in a different way, and we are analyzing the impact accessibility has in the different areas, and we've got Ilunion, Prediv, Red Estable to collaborate, and we find good practices. We see more and more destinations that have accessibility desks in which the different entities working, coordinating in the town hall agree on the activities that have to put into common when they have to publish leaflets, how must they do a green, how to design tourist offices. Some foster more new technologies, others, if it's a beach destination, for the beaches to be accessible. So each one has its own features, but we do identify higher awareness amongst the managers about the importance of tourism and accessibility in tourism, because it's a universal right. Therefore, it is not only necessary to take those decisions for disabled people, but in the end, we'll all get older, so we all will need those good practices. And that's basically what we are facing, the awareness that the managers have and the good practices that are coming up. But some go towards more infrastructures, some others go towards covering the new different regulations, and others to technologies, apps, webs, and then something that we will talk about afterwards is the importance of the entrepreneurs in this sector. But as a summary, there's more and more awareness, and managers are aware of it, and they do give it importance. When talking about new technologies, that question for Dulce, what are the services that the platform technologies can provide to create and give what the smart destination must give? Well, I have to say that since Simprome, which belongs to the Tenerife regional government, we have been working for 22 years already on these issues, and tourism for us has been a priority because Tenerife is a tourist destination and it's one of the main engines of the island. So we have to work with tourist services, infrastructures, and promoting accessibility there is fundamental. And during these years, we have developed a information database, understanding that the previous information to plan a trip is essential, and even more so if the people that are traveling have disabilities or have communication and mobility impairments. And little by little, this database has been complemented, has been perfected. And in these last years, it has become the technological platform Accessible Tenerife, Tenerife Accesible, where we have gathered a lot of information on public infrastructures, urban maps, and right now it is a fundamental tool for an ambitious project that is going to be that it has been set up by the regional government, which is the Smart Island, and there the regional government's commitment towards accessibility is priority number one, and we will offer there all that information included in that database and working so that this becomes a reality. To close this first round of questions, maybe the question could have been the first one, because what does intelligent contribute with to tourist destinations? Well, as Enrique said, thank you for this invitation. I'm very glad to be with you all. Well, the first I like to say when we talk about smart citizens accessibility is that we cannot talk about a smart city or an approach towards a smart city if we don't take into account accessibility. To us, it's basic. And just a short stroke of what the Spanish network of smart cities is. We're at 65 cities right now. It's the world's country with the biggest network of cities working together towards a smart cities approach. And our value is that it is a network that goes bottom upwards with a very major robust technical work, which is the one done by Solidarity. And that I have to explain it because it's important. The network tries once for not to all cities start from scratch all the projects. If a city has already developed a certain aspect or a case study or a technological development, so that can be put at the disposal of the other 64 cities so that they can be more agile and work better towards that smart cities approach. The first time we had a meeting of the working group within the network was done with the social innovation group, and they deal with accessibility. The first thing they brought were success cases of projects that they had been working on under an accessibility approach, and that is something which is very important. But we also have to bear in mind that the technology is an opportunity, but not only for public administrations, but also for citizens that can directly, through technology, create the city they want. And it is very important, as Enrique was saying, and we were talking about it before, the role of the business entrepreneurial citizens, that it can develop projects and services to solve problems the city has, that many of them have to do with accessibility. It is important for that in this ecosystem that is being created to explain what is this about accessibility and the need that exists to start projects starting from scratch thinking about accessibility. And also, we have to work thinking about that citizens don't need to have 100 apps per city they're going to visit. As the example that was given, the Japanese coming to Spain and having to go through 5 cities, Madrid, Toledo, Segovia, Seville, and Barcelona. Is it going to download 5 applications? So that all cities must be aligned so that we can have a touristic API where a tourist or anyone, any citizen, because a tourist is a citizen, is a citizen guest, so that that guest won't have the need that by changing city having to change an app. But as he's geolocalized, he will get all the information of where he is. If we think about accessibility, of having updated information on the parking spaces for mobility impairment people, well, that's providing a solution to necessary needs, to services that can be provided.
Accesibilidad, ¿qué otro?
Enrique, apart from accessibility, what other parameters do you take into account when assessing a smart destination? It's 4. Innovation, accessibility, sustainability, and its different facets, economic, cultural, environmental, and the technological level too. Bear in mind that when we kick off a project, the first thing that we have to do is to design what is and a smart touristic destination. Well, traditionally, Spain is a beach and sun touristic destination, but from the standpoint of offer, a smart destination should offer a tourist a customized experience. This is why it's so important to use technology and innovation, because each one of us, when we go to a destination, we're looking for a unique experience. And from the management point of view, what we want to do is to make data-based decision. This is why intelligence and technology is so important. The mix for smart destination is therefore innovation, technology, accessibility, and sustainability. When you answered the first question, you said a sentence that was, technology is an opportunity for citizenship, and especially so that citizens become entrepreneurs. Are there any examples as to how this has had an impact on citizenship? Do you have any of them to mention? From the network, we launched a project called Startups for Cities. And by the way, yesterday, we opened up the call for papers, so maybe you want to take a look at our requirements so that you can present your projects. But what we offer is not really money. We don't offer an investment. We offer the 65 cities so that entrepreneurial projects can validate their product and service in a real environment, in a city environment, because sometimes this is even harder than getting an investment for your projects. But in order to get an investment, you also need to validate your development in a real environment, in a city environment. So this is what our network offers. Last June 2014, we had 100 projects that were presented. 12 were finally selected, and the most voted project is the one that is put in place for accessibility. And this is done by a team of entrepreneurs, but the person that visualizes this most is Ana Puertas with a project called Isabel Park, I think she said. And normally, what they've done with this project is to get to know where to park in a certain city, because you know where to park in your own city, but when you go to a different city, it's difficult to get to know where disabled parking spots are. And this young team came across this problem, and they decided that this was something to be solved. So right now, young entrepreneurs are interacting a lot with technology, trying to solve also their problems, the personal problems. So what they did was to put together Disabled Park, this new application, so that any people with mobility restrictions can find in any city in Spain that those disabled parking spots. I can tell you about this because I was the mentor of this team, and I know that they had many difficulties in finding the parking spots through the town halls, because there were no databases in the town hall and nobody really knew who had the information. And this is a very important issue. In order for this to work, in order for entrepreneurs to be able to create this, it's very important for town halls to put data at the disposal of entrepreneurs and companies so that they can work on apps for this purpose. So what did we facilitate? Well, we created links with over 65 town halls so that they could have access to this data, so that other people could use this free app to find disabled parking spots. And the business model doesn't involve payments from citizens or from the cities. It revolves around local sponsorships. They make a 15 euro contribution on a yearly basis, and we have their logo displayed on the app. And also, normally the businesses that contribute this are also sustainable businesses. So this is a technology-based problem solution. You were talking about open data. In Spain, we have a technical committee for this validation, and one of the first standards actually that they issued was about how to regulate open data and how to regulate data at the town hall level. And thanks to that act, to that regulation, there's an increasing number of town halls that have had public data on websites, and this is something that's worth highlighting because there's an increasing number of public initiatives and also joint ventures between public and private entities that push this forward. Dulce, you wanted to pinpoint something? Yes, indeed. In the case of Tenerife, we are part of the government and we have competencies over the whole island, and what we do is to compile information from the different municipalities. The island is divided into 31 municipalities, and in the future we want to open this up because we have an open data project so that we can make this data available so that any app and any platform can use the data to offer them to citizens, because at the end of the day, they are the end users, or even other town halls, so that they can use them for their own management. This is the added value of the platform Tenerife Accesible, which is the one that we're managing right now. How do you integrate accessibility in your tourism plans? From Ilunion and from Monte Foundation, when we talk about comprehensive accessibility plans, we want to avoid mentioning the term accessibility because we want all plans to embed accessibility per se. Until now, all strategic plans that have to do with urbanism, with ICTs, with architecture, which are currently called accessibility plans, are plans that need to deal with accessibility in a cross-cutting manner. For instance, in accessibility in tourism, our approach is that we need to analyze the whole chain considering accessibility in tourism. So, for instance, how to get transportation tickets to get to your tourist destination. How do we book accommodation? The whole process related to booking management. How do we manage accessible activities if they exist? And is that environment accessible? So we analyze the whole analysis globally. So we put together the ICTs and the management side. We assess how the tourist destination relates or gets in contact with that customer from a global standpoint. And on that basis, we have come up with a series of improvement proposals in terms of accessibility because we detected a few gaps whereby users and destination were not really striking the right balance. And depending on the scope and the outreach of the different tourist destination managers that are participating in this, we come up with a series of proposals so that they can improve the global accessibility of that destination. We have come up with a strategic plan in terms of implementation times, costs, and so on. And the different agents involved in that tourist destination, make decisions as to which recommendations they will subsequently implement. Before you were talking about accessibility from an early stage. And that would be ideal. If you do it, you will give rise to a more accessible outcome for everybody. And you would prevent subsequent costs to fix what wasn't done right from the outset. Because quite often, when you go to a tourist destination, everything has already been built. So what we do is to work on the early stages in some tourist destinations. For instance, in the north of Arousa, we came up with a series of comprehensive proposals because we assessed accessibility, and we came up with proposals for activities, for accommodation, for the booking process. For instance, in Uruguay also, we did joint work with WTO, and we assessed all the tourist destinations available for tourists, and we came up with a proposal so that they could roll it out to achieve their goals. Ideally, we should always start from scratch with a blank paper. As I mentioned in the beginning, we are really lucky because we have worked on a beautiful project in Qatar where they're planning a new city, which is going to be a very important tourist destination with the World Cup 2022. So right now we have the chance to propose actions that will be possibly implemented from a very early stage. And it's great to be able to do it. And something that we mentioned when discussing this project, it's also very important to bear in mind users. Also hand in hand with David, who was really supportive. In Qatar, we were able to include citizens' needs and also the needs of visitors, of potential visitors. What would they expect from a destination where they're going to spend their holiday, or if they tour around a certain city? We took into account what they would be expecting. So we put together the technical side pertaining accessibility, but we always make this revolve around users and peoples. Earlier on, we were talking about smart human cities, and therein, persons need to be at the core. And this is something that we always need to take into account when talking about smart tourist destinations. People need to be at the core. So now this links up with the question that I wanted to ask to Dulce. Dulce, sometimes we want to use some change levers. For instance, what is the role played by tourists in improving accessibility conditions and in complying with legislation in place? And also, what's the role of the tourist manager as a change lever, as a transformation agent? I will talk to you from my personal standpoint because I work in Tenerife and 60% of the GDP comes from tourism. So most of the actions that we undertake in the island have an impact on tourism. So there, what we did was to focus on investing in regeneration projects for touristic areas. We are in a way a supervisor of many of these actions, and after a few years we've seen that the built environment and the physical accessibility has changed, but regrettably, and I must mention this is a pity, we do have a lot of problems with the private sector. There is a legislation that they need to comply with, but they comply with it at a minimum level. They comply with the legislation, but at a very low level, and accessibility of those locations does not always guarantee that the place is indeed accessible, because the service needs to be comprehensive so that the person can feel comfortable in these locations. We shouldn't just be talking about accommodation here, because when tourists come to our island, they want to go to the beach, they want to go up the Teide volcano, and they want to do active tourism, and we need to raise a lot of awareness about that. In Tenerife, we don't have the problem of seasonality. It's always high season, so to speak, for tourism. And we haven't really had a crisis in the tourism sector. When you talk to businessmen about accessible tourism, they say, okay, that's fine, but because they don't have any economic issues, because they have, they're fully booked, they're not even considering it. So we need to put out there in the market that accessibility is one more parameter included in service quality. And if we don't offer accessibility, we won't be an excellent tourist destination, and we will be lagging behind. And this is why the town hall or the local government is taking this on, so that we can be at the adequate level. And also we are putting together a lot of information to be offered through smartphones for tourists, so that they can enjoy our island at an adequate quality level. What could we do to apply this smart concept at a national level? Because you said it would be great to have one single app, so that we don't have to download one app per city. Well, there's many things that we could do. What José Luis said is key. Smart cities are not just about having technology for the sake of having technology. Technology offers an opportunity to create increasingly more human cities, so that people can live comfortable for the whole year or for a few days, if that's for how long they're going to stay with us. And that's the spirit that we have when working in our network. We have linked the concept of smart cities to great business platforms and large entrepreneurial projects, but there needs to be a spirit to improve the life quality of the inhabitants of our citizens, so that we can truly harness the available technologies in order to do this in a more agile, efficient, and more economically profitable manner. That is key for me. And also, coordination and collaboration is basic. Collaboration between cities and cooperation with companies that are working in these areas. We need to incentivize the entrepreneurial spirit also. And since the very beginning, we also need to explain what accessibility is about, because from an early stage, we need to think about this the very same way as we consider the finances in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and also interoperability. And this topic is a bit prickly. Traditionally, what has happened with the existing technology is that a certain amount of times we purchased a certain amount of technologies for different areas, and technology was quite standardized. We need to make this technology more accessible and more affordable, and we need to broaden it, because those technologies can be broadened in every single city to increase the number of services offered there, so that municipal areas are not under so much pressure to acquire this technology, so that we can all profit from these developments. And then standardization, as Enrique said. It's very important for data to not just be available, but also available in the same format, so that companies can feed off those data in the same way everywhere, so that it is easier to use open data to develop applications. all these points should be taken into account, and this is what we attempt to do in our working lines in the network. We can go back then to the technical committee on the standardization that we have in Spain. We have over 600 agents that work on different standards, including different entities, that collaborate to come up with standards to contribute towards standardizations. Some standards are currently being developed, but if you allow me, from a philosophical and theoretical point of view, it's easy to reach a consensus, but then we need to take into consideration P&L accounts of companies, and this is something that governs everything. All companies are attempting to put forward this interoperability standard, but it is true that we are evolving towards a more service-oriented model that's not so based on licenses, but interoperability is something that is key, and it's something that we need to achieve from the technological standpoint. You still have the floor because your answer is linked to my next question. We're on the right way, but what would be the ideal condition for accessibility from the standpoint of national tourist managers? Well, first, we need to understand the travel cycle of tourists, because there's a before stage, a while stage, and an after stage. Managers need to come to understand this concept so that we can be at the service of tourists. When we put together smart tourism reports, we're very fortunate, but we have the support of Ilulion and Predit, and when we do this audit processes, we stay on the premises for a full week, and we put ourselves in the shoes of travelers that would come to that destination with any type of disability, and we assess the different destinations, for instance, beaches, sidewalks, the applications, websites. So we put ourselves in the shoes of tourists, and this is what we convey to the management entity so that they can take on the global concept, so that they can gain awareness of its importance, because a person, irrespective of their disability, needs to be completely free to enjoy the destination just as a person without a disability would do. Predit and Ilunion are both doing a key effort. And it's great because when we receive feedback from town halls, one of the points that impresses them the most is accessibility, because everybody knows how important technology is, and everybody knows how important innovation is for processes, for improvement, and people know about sustainability. But, accessibility is something that we all theoretically recognize to be important, but we are not fully aware of what that really represents. And when they become aware of what that means, satisfaction is really high. One destination that I'm not going to mention literally, but there has been a change in government in that tourist destination, and the new government called us up last week and said, listen, each and every single one of the proposals that you made in your reports have been introduced in our new strategic plan for the new term. So we see increasing awareness on this point, and we consider that it's really important that we all get in the shoes of the tourist. Empathy is really important, yes, and we still need to do a lot of work at many levels, at the administration level, at the institution level, also with training entities, so that we can push forward that awareness raising, so that we can all put ourselves in somebody else's shoes to determine the limitations. Dulce, Arona, as a consolidated tourist destination, faces a few challenges. Which are they? What could be the role played by innovation in this tourist destination? Arona is a municipality in the island, but we cannot limit it. We cannot really consider that Arona will be the only tourist destination. They will go to Arona, but they will want to go to the remainder of the island too. And there, possibly innovation is key, and we need to have a joint and comprehensive action from the town hall's point of view. We need to create networks. We need to guarantee that travel life cycle. Tourists don't just want to get to the hotel in Arona and go to Arona Beach. They want to take public transport, go to the capital. They want to go to the Teide volcano. They want to go to museums. They want to practice sports. So that's the importance of the full cycle. We need to delve deeper into that, and we need to innovate too, because the accessibility chain has some points that still need to be linked and joined in a way. Thank you very much. We started off this panel by giving the floor to José Luis. And José Luis, you are going to be the last one to participate in the panel. You were the first and the last. So in a couple of minutes, we would really like it if you could round up the panel and try to respond to the next question. What are the challenges that Spain faces in terms of accessible tourism vis-a-vis other countries? You're very close to Ilunion and you probably know it better. What are the challenges that we need to face and each one of us will have to face? Linking up with what Dulce just said in her intervention, one of the greatest challenges is to make the administrations and the entrepreneurial and the business sector see that accessibility is not just a feature that they need to offer in products and services of that destination that are intended to respond to a certain group's needs. It's more than that. That's the key challenge. Accessibility is a synonym of quality, and accessibility is an advantage for everybody. Accessibility shouldn't just offer specific services for disabled people. Some of them will have to, of course. This is dictated by their very design. They must be specific for some disabilities. But at the end of the day, accessibility needs to be tantamount to to quality tourism. I have the bad habit of smoking. I'm one of the few of those people who still smoke. And quite often before I go to sleep, I like to smoke a couple of cigarettes at the entrance of hotels. And when I went to Colombia, I realized that many hotels had a ramp to access the hotel, and many of them had also stairs with 6 or 8 steps, but the ramp was duly designed, and they had protection bars that were correctly designed, and they were correctly signaled, and there was a lot of traffic through those ramps. They weren't being used by any people on wheelchairs, but you could see that some ladies were pushing their trolleys with their babies, and the busboy was taking the luggage up the ramp. So I think that's a challenge that we all need to share with those businessmen, so that they consider accessibility to be a sign of quality. It's clear that this is complicated. It's complicated from the standpoint of ONCE Foundation and Ilunion and from other entities in the third sector. We've been working on it for many years. We are trying to raise awareness, not just in the tourism sector, but also in general. I'm an architect professionally, and as we mentioned earlier, design shouldn't just be accessible, it should be good or bad. And it will be good if it is accessible. It is therefore very important to raise awareness among public entities as well as among businessmen. And also, As Enrique said, regarding participation, when he was talking about the Technical Committee on Standardization, we must mention that there's a subcommittee that we coordinate that has to do with smart tourist destination. And through that committee, we're realizing that it will be possible to standardize and to issue technical standards and norms to not really make mandatory, but perhaps to provide guidelines so that public administrations and businessmen can refer to them. Quite often, it's just not knowing about it because they lack the knowledge. Sometimes they always blame architects for all these things, but sometimes what they do is to try to comply with the different standards marked by the technical code. So if there needs to be a ramp, they put a ramp in place, but not all ramps are accessible, just like not all websites are accessible just by complying with the standards. And I always tell an anecdote shared with José Luis Cuesta a few years ago, Jesus Hernández many years ago. We were talking about a menu and we said, is this menu accessible just because it costs so much? Well, I mean, accessibility and broadcasting accessibility is a very important challenge. And now I would like to take 10 more seconds to make an announcement. I don't know whether this has already been mentioned in some panels, but Fundación 11 is developing an observatory of tourist destinations. Ilunion is working on developing an observatory to see what users value the most in their trips, and some colleagues from Ilunion are currently at the Congress. You probably saw some signs with the QR signs, whereby we request your tourist experience to tell us your information, what you think, because it's not about creating tourist destination for disabled people. It's also about coming up with solutions, products, and services that will be good for everybody. Thank you very much, and we now close this panel.